This story comes from the 2025 Red Hulk series, issue number 1. Please support the official release. As always, I also wanted to let you guys know that our superhero training program is live. If you're ready to get your confidence back and finally get in the superhero shape you've always dreamed of, you can contact me in the consultation form in the video description below. We can hop on a call and discuss your fitness goals and nerd out about comics. What's there not to love? Roll the music. The story opens aboard a Chinese airliner late one night, as it flies above the seas of North Korea. While the flight's passengers would consist of normal everyday citizens, we'd also see there was an American present. And this wasn't just any regular man. This was former War General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, the current Red Hulk. The general would then look at his watch, where he'd receive some sort of notification. Making his way to the back of the craft, we'd see a little girl mistakenly drop her stuffed bear at the man's feet. Ross would give the child back her toy, where he'd show off his linguistics by responding to her in Korean, saying that it was alright. Arriving to the bathroom, Thaddeus would then lock the door, remarking that this flight would soon be over. Looking at himself in the mirror, Ross began to wash his face. He was preparing for something big, saying to himself that this was the price of war. Instead of bombing the plane's toilet after a bad trip to Taco Bell, we'd see this was far worse, as the man would begin his transformation into his monstrous crimson counterpart, saying that what he was about to do was necessary, for some people must die poorly so that others may live in prosperity. Things then cut to the pilots, who instantly felt the plane shift, believing that they may have hit some unexpected turbulence. The entire flight's passengers would begin to feel this as well, where they were told to remain in their seats. Knowing that something was terribly wrong, the child from before, along with her mother, would look to the back of the plane, where they would hear a dreaded rumbling that would only get louder and louder. A horrified flight attendant would then witness the bathroom door fly off its hinges, where we'd see the giant hand of the Red Hulk finally emerge. The brute would then begin to viciously tear into the plane, where he'd eventually rip right through the roof. Tearing the craft completely in half, Ross would then leap to the earth below, where we'd witness the airliner explode, as we'd see the child, her mother, and all the passengers aboard plummet to their deaths. We'd discover that this flight had more than 400 people aboard, which also consisted of some celebrities and politicians. Crashing into a North Korean nuclear power plant, we'd see that Ross had all of this planned out. As he would kill the soldiers, he'd reveal that this attack would be blamed on North Korea, which would be reinforced even further as he then launched nuclear missiles at the surrounding countries, creating mass chaos and destruction within Asia, whose alliances were already quite brittle. Making his way to the control room, we then see it fill with a mysterious green gas. Instead of it being the airport Taco Bell coming back to haunt him, we'd actually discover that this entire assault was an illusion. The real Ross was actually weakened, withered, and held captive in a cell, his jailer being none other than Dr. Doom, who had kidnapped the man, forcing him to use his brilliant military mind on how to sow discord amongst the world's nations. Being held for longer than he could even remember, Ross would demand for something in exchange for his counsel, even something as simple as a glimpse of the sun, where Doom would coldly inform him that he was in no place to make demands. Saying that he forgets who holds power in the situation, Doom then channeled his inner Darth Vader and used Marvel's version of the Force to pick the general up and slam him into the walls, saying that this would be a reminder of who holds his leash. Literally seeing red, that's about all Ross could do, as Doom had managed to restrain him with a power-dampening collar, thus preventing him from transforming into the Hulk. Feeling like he was at his wit's end, Thaddeus would soon realize that not all was lost, as he began to hear a sound. The sound of someone tapping. We'd see that Ross was not alone in this prison, as we'd hear this tapping came from the infamous and underrated Marvel cyborg, and that would be Deathlock. This tapping would continue into a series of Morse code, where even more inmates would be revealed. From US military generals, to cartel leaders, Harvard professors, and even Machine Man, Doom had kidnapped some of the most brilliant and dangerous minds he could find. He had created his own personal think tank, dedicated to global war. Empowered that he was not alone in his isolation, Ross's general side once more kicked in. He had a plan. Giving himself a much-needed haircut and shave, my man then started doing some old-school prison workouts as he prepared for what was next. He would then wait until one of the Doombot jailers came to deliver his food, where he would then wait until just the right moment where the drone would turn its head. Using a screw that had fallen from the ceiling panel, Ross then used it to tap on the wall to alert Machine Man that it was time. In a rather comical next series of panels, we'd see Machine Man purposefully insult the Doombot, where he too would get Darth Vadered as he'd continually get slammed into the walls so hard that it would literally knock his arm completely off. This was all part of the plan though, as we'd see that there was a cable system holding his limbs together. He would then use his broken arm and cable as a makeshift grappling hook, where he'd then pull himself to the air ducts within the ceiling. Die-harding his way through the ducts, Machine Man would then make his way to Ross's cell, where he'd manage to free him as well. We'd then see the Doombot make its rounds with some very protein-lacking meal delivery, where it would soon realize that Ross was gone. Rocketing down the halls, we'd see Thaddeus had planned for this as well. Knowing he was in no position to fight the bot head-on, he knew he could still outsmart it, where it fell right into his trap as it went to check on Machine Man's cell. Ross would then use the cable from Machine Man's arm to ensnare the bot, where he and his robot bro would rightfully beat the dude into submission. Chattiest Ross would then use the Doombot's armor to unlock his power-dampening collar, where Machine Man would warn him that they had company. We'd then see a swarm of Doombots fly into the men's location, where we'd see Ross smile as he'd finally be able to transform once more, saying that it was time to break out the heavy artillery.